Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome to an amazing game that I found recently on the official CCRL chess.com website. It's Stockfish 15 against another top engine rebel in a beautiful Hastings variation of the Queen's Gambit decline. And the Hastings variation we didn't cover so far here on my YouTube chess channel. It's a very aggressive method of whites where basically the main line of this opening is a line where you stay with your king in the center. Really wild stuff. You don't even secure the king by castling. You play the move king to d1, which is really wild. And when we think about it harder, who is the best player when it comes to king in the central position? I think the Stockfish engine was always the best in these types of positions. We have seen many dirty games in which Stockfish launched a flank attack and stayed with the king in the center, created central breakthrough motifs, pushed the pawns in the center with the king in the center. So it's, I think, really incredible how Stockfish is playing the game, especially, as I said, in these types of positions. So with this game, we are starting now also our mini series about the Queen's Gambit decline Hastings variation. If you're maybe watching one of my videos for the first time, I have to tell you that I have this playlist of the Queen's Gambit decline. We have covered many beautiful openings like Rago's defense, Tarash defense, semi-Tarash, Vienna variation. We have seen also the beautiful Cambridge Springs defense. So now we are starting here the Hastings variation of the Queen's Gambit decline, and we'll add it, of course, into our Queen's Gambit decline studies. So the link of the whole playlist is here. Check it out, and I think you could have really great preparation in D4 studies. So let's see now the Hastings variation in a beautiful, sharp tactical game played by two top engines. Stockfish opened with the move d4. We have now the move d5 by a rebel. We have c4, the Queen's Gambit, and after move c6 we have now the Slav defense. And don't be bothered about these names of openings, because the Slav defense, I think, is also just a part of the Queen's Gambit decline, because you are declining the Queen's Gambit. So in the beginning it's named really the Slav defense, but afterwards it will transpose into the Hastings variation of the Queen's Gambit decline. So it's just a different name. So in the continuation, knight to f3, knight to f6, knight to c3, we have now the three knights variation of the Slav defense, e6, semi-Slav, and now after bishop to g5. Now the next couple of moves are very important. Now we will reach this Hastings variation sequence with the move h6, and now comes really the tricky part. First of all, what we're trying to do here is this move, bishop to f6. After queen to f6, okay, you can say now, why should white give up the bishop pair in an early stage of the game? Why is white giving up the bishop for knight? Actually, after move queen to f6, the problem for black is here that it's not really the optimal bishop pair, because we can notice with this light square pawn structure, with this light square pawn chain, black is having not a great time, I think, to get the light square bishop into the game. The light square bishop is simply a bad piece. This is not really the optimal open position where the bishops are targeting many squares, many diagonals all over the board. So far the light square bishop is simply too paralyzed, it's simply too blocked out. So that's why we are playing now this move, queen to b3. Queen to b3 is, I think, a good choice, and now we have reached the Hastings variation position. So this is now our cornerstone position that we'll analyze now a little bit more. So after move queen to b3, we can notice that black is lacking already in development here. Black has only brought the queen out into the game. On the other hand, notice white has already two powerful knights out. The queen is out. We have already a tension in the center of the board. And we are continuing with our normal plan, e4. e4, I think, is now a realistic goal, especially because of the fact when we took the knight with our bishop on f6, the knight on f6 controlled always the e4 square. Now it's not there anymore, so that's why e4, in my opinion, is now a great choice. e4 really is now keeping the pressure in black's position. So now black needs to find some kind of a counterplay. One of the ideas that you could have is maybe d takes c4 followed with b5, maybe a6, then for c5. But in my opinion, the best method is to play this line, a5. a5 is a preparation to play bishop to b4, and the bishop on b4 could pin the knight on c3, which is controlling the e4 square. And as I said, e4, e4, it's not just a battle for the e4 square. It's really the battle of Hastings here. So really, it's now really a dynamic play for both sides. And I'm not saying this is a bad position for black. When it comes to computer relations, the engine gives here equal chances. So nothing wrong for black. If you maybe manage to get your bishop somehow into the game, this could be a beautiful game, especially if you manage maybe to play the move e5. If you get the bishop on f5, on g4 and similar stuff, if the bishop, a light square bishop somehow gets into the game, then it's a perfect position, of course, for sure. So in the continuation now, in my opinion, white needs to play e4 immediately. Although it weakens a little bit the structure, but if you play a3, if you're trying maybe to prevent b4, then black can continue with move a4 immediately, and it seems so that you could maybe pick up the pawn on a4, but look at this, after d takes c4, you don't have time to pick up the pawn on c4, you get b5, the fork against the minor piece and against the queen. So this position, I think, is even a slightly better position for black, because now it's an unbalanced pawn structure. b5, c5 could happen, bishop to b7, we could get maybe the bishop in a different way into the game, knight to d7, the queen is good here, bishop to e7, bishop to d6 is perfectly fine. So this is not working, I think, here for white. So in the continuation, we have to play e4. We have to get our goal that we wanted to play in the first place. But now, after d takes e4, knight to e4, now comes the tricky part. Bishop to b4, check. And actually, the best move, believe me or not, is here to play king to d1. Every other move is, in my opinion, not so good for white, because look at this. We could try this one, queen to b4, and after a takes b4, we hit also the queen, okay, and knight takes f6, after g takes f6, but look at this. In my opinion, black solved every positional problem. First of all, there is now the tension on the a file, so black has a great attack on the a file. Rook to g8 could happen, so black could have also an attack on the g file. Knight to d7, I think, is a good plan. Then b6, c5, again, let the pawns rolling. Bishop to b7. So it's, I think, very easy now for black to play the game for sure. And there are many games in the database, even in these positions, in which black is winning the game. So in my opinion, this is something that white should try to avoid. So knight to c3, getting the knight back does make also sense, because we'll play simply c5, and this is again a position that we wanted to get in the first place. So as I said, the position gets more and more open, the position gets more and more dynamic, and dynamic positions, of course, are great for the bishop here. So now b6, bishop to b7, knight to d7, e5, I'm not sure, but this is again a good game for black. Of course, knight from f to d2 here is not working, because you lost the connection between the knight and the pawn, and now queen to d4 is winning a pawn. So that's why you have to play king to d1. Very, very wild stuff. It seems so that something went wrong here for white. The king is in the center, but as I said, who is the best player with the king in the central position? It's, of course, the Stockfish 15 engine. Look at this, how Stockfish now plays the game. Rebel continues the pressure against the knight. We have bishop to d3, and there are basically, again, three good moves here for black. Bishop to e7, f5, and kingside castling. f5 seems tempting. It forces a reaction by white. Knight to c3 is, of course, now again the opportunity, but it's now not the same. We have seen in the previous position with the move c5, you could try to paralyze the position on the queen side, but actually what I don't like is here, after kingside castling, the light square weaknesses in front of black's king. So in my opinion, okay, this is maybe the way to go. f5, kicking away the knight, but as I said, there it creates also some other strategic problems in black's position. So that's why rebel castle here. In the continuation, we have now the move c5, and the threat, the serious threat, is now the move a3, simply trapping the bishop, and also getting the knight maybe here on this beautiful square d6. But now rebel plays the beautiful move e5. This is now really a wild position. This rebel sacrifices now the pawn on e5 just in order to open the position, because you don't have time, I think, here to play knight to e5. Bishop to e6 is going to happen. You have to step back with the queen. The rook is coming into the game here on d8. The bishop is very active now. This diagonal is open. Many weaknesses here on f2, for instance. So this is not working anymore for white. So that's why after move e5, here a3 was played first by Stockfish, and now comes bishop to e6. And this is now the main mistake that I think black will make many times in the Hastings variation of the Queen's Gambit decline. It's quite tempting, but bishop to e6 is a huge mistake. What black should have done is bishop to f5. Actually, bishop to f5 is now a different story, because now we can play knight to maybe d6, getting out of this attack. But now with the move e4, black could at least continue the pressure, at least could create this fork. Now we play bishop to e4, bishop to e4, knight to e4, queen to e4, and okay, we could also pick up now the bishop on b4, and okay, black lost the pawn in this sequence. But I would really not love to play maybe even this game from white's perspective, especially because of the fact that the king is in the center, the rook is coming into the game, the knight is also coming into the game, maybe here to d5. This could be dangerous. So the engine gives here again equal chances for both sides, but as I said, you can be the judge of this position. I'm not sure which position, as I said, should I play here from this point on. So in the continuation, bishop to e6 instead of bishop to f5 was played by Rebel, and this is now a huge mistake because Stockfish plays now queen to c2, retreats now. f5, you don't have time anymore to play the move f5 because we'll simply play bishop, after move f5 we'll play simply bishop to c4, and if you play here something like, I don't know, f takes e4, we'll simply pick up the bishop, you can have to step back. Now we play knight to e5, knight to g6 is now the threat. Okay, you can pick up the pawn, would just trade it off. The bishop is hanging, so the game is over here for black for sure. So that's why from queen to c2, the Rebel engine played a wild line, bishop to h3. After g takes h3, of course, you get queen to f3, and this is not working. So that's why Stockfish plays a beautiful move, knight to h4, deflects the queen far away from the action. Here, after queen to h4, we have now g takes h3, but still the bishop is hanging, so nothing changed. Here, the bishop is still there, attacked by the pawn, and there's simply no good escape route for the bishop. So in the continuation, knight to a6. If we play here a takes b4 in the first place, then of course knight to b4 leads now into disaster. Knight takes d3 is going to happen, f5, and again the game should be over here for white. Actually, although black is down a whole piece, but with the move f5 you could face again many tactical problems. So that's why after move knight to a6, Stockfish played bishop to a6. We have now rook to d8, controlling the d file. If the d file opens, of course the king could be endangered. Knight to d6 by Stockfish. Look at this, what's going on now. Queen to d4, and after king to e2, Stockfish finally regrouped, sort of. It's strange that the king is on e2, but actually there are no good checks for black. Queen to c4, queen to g4, queen to e4 is not working, although the bishop on a6 is hanging, but of course also this bishop is hanging. So we have here bishop to c5 by Rebel. It seems that black could get maybe out of this attack, but now again a beautiful move, knight to e4, attacking the bishop, and this is, in my opinion, now game over. We have now bishop to a7, retreating. If you take, of course, rook takes a6, then we simply play rook to d1. The queen has to step back, and then in the next move we'll simply pick up the bishop on c5. So really wild stuff. So here the continuation, knight to e4, bishop to a7, rook to d1, again hitting the queen. The queen has to step back, and now with the move bishop to c4, the game is, in my opinion, over, although the king is still a little bit misplaced on e2, but I think now when the position is not so dynamic anymore, white could actually defend the position. So here Rebel goes out of this attack with king to f8, out of this light square mess, is trying maybe a move like f5. In the continuation, we have now h4, queen to c7, now h5. If we play here some ideas of f5, then of course knight to g5 could happen. Look at this, after h takes g5, we could get the queen into the game on f5, h6, h7. So this is now also problem, always the tactical problem around the square f5. So in the continuation, we have now rook to d4, rook takes d4, e takes d4, king to f3, simply bringing the king into security, rook to d8, and now knight to g3, getting the knight on a beautiful defensive square. The knight is defending the pawn, and now we're just trying to get the king on g2, and white should be perfectly fine. So queen to e5, rook to d1, we have queen to c5, beautiful blockade here with the move queen to d3, b5. Okay, you have your fun with some attacks, but now after bishop to a2, we have a bishop to b8, king to g2, and this is now really a beautiful position, especially because of the fact that we can also include the bishop now on this long diagonal, and there are several even checkmate threats on h8, and maybe with rook to e1 you could control the e file. So very dangerous. So bishop to g3, we have f takes g3, rook to d7, rook to f1, queen to e5, queen to f3, we have here f6, queen to c6. This is not working anymore, the position is simply too stretched. Bishop to e6, and after d3 in this position, Rebel resigns. So we can always play something like rook to d1, bishop to g4, controlling the square. Will pick up this pawn, and okay, maybe here it's an extra pawn for black, but of course with the extra piece, white is winning the game for sure. So great game in the Hastings variation of the Queen's Gambit decline. Memorize this line, very important here, the critical moment. let's go back. Bishop to e6. The first really mistake here by the Rebel engine. Bishop to f5 should have been played. It leads now into complicated position for both sides. So, in my opinion, after bishop to f5, it's playable position for black, but this is must-know theory if you reach, of course, the Hastings variation. So, as I said, with this video, we're starting now our mini-series. We'll see also cool Alireza Firouzja game, which is also incredible. So, in my opinion, it's also a very important variation that we should add, of course, into your Queen's Gambit Decline study. So, okay, here's again the link of our Queen's Gambit Decline series. You can also check it out. And if you want to see maybe more games by Stockfish and also by some other top engines, check out our Common Chess Games Played by Computers series. Here's also the link. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.